characteristic performances early on in the Big Ten. So it felt good to kind of be ourselves tonight.
For you, AJ, just being out for the past two duels, how did it feel just for you to get back on the mat?
Felt good. I think it's always great to not only me perform, but watch guys like Brock Hardy get a big win tonight. Antrell Taylor, just having those guys start off the night, that momentum, carries into later rounds. When 97 heavyweight, especially going into these next couple weeks, I never overlook anyone. But looking towards, Iowa, Penn State coming up out of way, Minnesota, when we have that type of momentum, it just builds, and these guys are very vocal, and he shows it. Brock Hardy, he's one of the first guys in the room, really works hard. Antrell Taylor, same thing. And my work ethic, you guys have known I've been all over. My work ethic is second to none. I make sure that I'm always doing the right things on and off the mat, and that's one thing that these guys do. And it felt good to be back next to my brothers. They're performing. They've been pushing me to get back, but been dealing with just a small little injury, turf toe. It takes time. Guys have been out for a while, but it feels good. I'm feeling strong, feeling explosive. I'm happy that I took that time off and finished these last 10 weeks off. Brock Hardy finished off this year. Me, Antrell Taylor, coming off a good solid year last year, and we keep building. Every single week. We kind of started out this year a little bit, rusty. Some guys had a little rust on the wheel, especially me. Antrell Taylor, you guys saw, had some minor mistakes that he fixed, and they're both looking phenomenal tonight. Brock Hardy, Antrell Taylor, and the whole team,
Yeah, Brock, maybe some frustrations over the last few matches. How'd you feel tonight, just kind of working through those to have a dominant performance?
Yeah, I knew that this match was going to be a little bit different, knowing that their main guy is hurt and they're having to fill in the lineup a little weird. But, every single time you step on the mat is an opportunity to get better and to put the work in. Last match had a really tough freshman. Match before that, didn't even get to wrestle, right? And that's just the nature of the sport. And so, falling in love with every opportunity you have to get better.
Brock, on a note, against Oklahoma State, you did not get the win. So what have you done to kind of mentally stay in check and get back-to-back wins?
Yeah, it was tough because, I know that me losing and then me losing the way that I did made it so it was going to be a harder way to win that duel. But, I've been wrestling since I was 3 years old, and I've been pinned, I think, in every single which way, and I've been caught in cradles a lot and gotten off my back. That day wasn't one of them. And so, it was just, I felt pretty good, and it felt good to get the win last week. Felt good to get this win this week. But for the most part, I rebounded 20 seconds after the match for the most part.
How do you guys feel like Allen set the tone at 125 tonight?
I love to see it. I've had Caleb and Liam as the 25s I've been here, and I've known that both guys we put out there between Kale and AK that, they were going to eventually find some rhythm and start getting us some wins. And it feels really good to start off the duel with momentum.
For sure, and I just think, not only that, but going back to what you guys were saying with, again, styles make matches. Brock Hardy, every single time he wrestles, he's fun to watch, right? It's good for wrestling. Brock Hardy is a guy that is intriguing. He's not going to be a guy that sits back and has a 0-0 match. And that's what builds wrestling. We have personalities. Like, he has a personality on the mat. He does roll-throughs. He does certain things that are risky, but it's what people want to see, right? We don't want to see a 0-0 match. We want to see aggressiveness. We want to see people who have personalities like myself, That's important to go out there, and I think that guys like him are growing wrestling, guys like myself, guys like Antrell Taylor that go out there and are aggressive, right? And I think that referees, they've been doing a good job of that, need to be more, rewarding of the offensive wrestlers. I think that if you have 2-3 attacks, there should be a stall call, and that's what I think Brock Hardy, has done a good job of making sure that those sequences he comes out on top. And when you live and die by the sword, there's always that chance. But, man, he's got some big wins, especially later in the postseason. And those pins, that's big for the team points.
AJ, for yourself, Coach Manning said you're just working to get back to conditioning. You mentioned the turf toe. How are you just feeling in general?
I feel strong. I feel explosive. The strength didn't leave. Like I said, it's just been really pushing off that toe. It feels good. I feel a lot better because now I can finally push off of it hard and really be explosive. So yeah, it's been tough, having these small injuries, turf toe, you guys know Joe Burrow had to have surgery. It can be severe, but just doing that, it's got stem cells. So it's important to manage yourself at this level. A guy that's been in wrestling for a long time, it takes a toll on the body, and I train smart, and the coaches have really done a good job here. I think one of the things that Coach Manning and Coach Tavoda Lagnev do a really good job of just making sure that we train smart, right? You notice a lot of our guys like Brock Hardy, like Antrell Taylor, we improve as the year goes on. Like you guys look at the rankings, which rankings mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. But if you guys look at how our team's been doing, right, we usually start out a little bit rusty in the beginning of the year because we ease into the year, and then as the year goes up, we amp it up in the right direction, right? A lot of teams, like not calling out teams, but some of the top programs like Iowa, like other schools, they tend to burn out and have a lot of injuries. So our team does a really good job of peaking, and that's one thing that separates this program is that Coach Manning and Coach DeVoto-Lagnev understand the severity of the injury, and I'm healthy, I feel great, and I'm going to finish this year out strong, So I'm just looking forward to the Nebraska wrestling team finishing out this year strong and continuing every single week we build. The coaches, even this last minute or two before this, they were saying build every match, right? That's what he's done a really good job. That's what I'm trying to improve, getting majors late in matches.
Can you explain what turf toe is? I know that people hear the term. You mentioned Joe Burrow. Can you explain, specifically to you, how does it affect you as a wrestler?
It really isn't fun. It's just basically overuse of the lower part of the toe. Basically from pushing off of it, especially being on the toe like this. Basically the overuse of it does damage and tears down the small amount of ligament in there and the tendon. So it really hurts. It's not fun, and you really can't push off your foot at all. I eventually had a metal plate in. I've had it quite a few times, to be honest, because I do a lot of footwork. I do a lot of jump rope, and it takes a toll on your feet. I really do a lot of footwork. So it's no fun, but thankfully the coaches, like I said, have let me recover now, and I can finish out this year strong. A lot of other coaches in the past, I'm not going to say names, but they used to make me push through injuries, and I've had to, I remember last year, not last year, but the years before that, I was pushing through injuries, and later in the season, I could barely move, barely walk. I was in so much pain. So this isn't my first time having it. I had it on the other foot, but yeah, it's healthy. It feels good, and we're just going to keep building. My conditioning, my movement, my fakes, that timing. It takes time. If you take 3-4 weeks off, and again, I took a couple years off focusing on more freestyle. Folk style is a different style, so getting that timing back and not just pushing guys out of bounds and getting double legs, working towards my fakes, my movement, different scrambling, and it's good in the room having that, guys like him, his style of wrestling. I get to watch him wrestle, and I'm really, my email is #1 wrestling scientist. I'm a student of the sport, so we all try to learn things. I learned from him because his style is so good when it comes to scrambles. I'm really quick to the legs. I have good little single legs, so. But yeah, the turf toe is doing good. But yeah, our team is just continuing to improve, and we look forward to the big matches. Like tonight, I looked forward to it. A lot of guys get nervous. All the big matches, there's more pressure, right? Every single week, there's more pressure as we go into the postseason. But our team looks forward to that, and a lot of our team, we're vocal and we live in faith, right? Obviously, #1 is our faith in Jesus Christ, and that's important to have that. If you don't have that bottom, I like to say it's almost like your pillar, right? Your bottom base. If you don't have that base of faith, it's going to be hard to perform at the high level.
AJ, what's been your impression of Nebraska's fan base and what impact they can make for a duel?
Yeah, it's been amazing. The fans here are absolutely amazing, and they have a ton of energy. The biggest thing I think with the fans is just they're so supportive and positive. I've been around some interesting fan bases throughout the country, Oklahoma State, Iowa, took a visit to Penn State, and just here, whether you win, lose, or draw, they're overwhelmingly just positive and loving and supportive. And I think it's a testament to just how strong the faith is around here. Coach Manning, Coach DeVoto-Lagnev, they show faith not through talking, but through action, right? They show it in the person they are, right? They don't just tell us things to do. They don't tell us get up early, train hard, show up early, be the last one to leave. They live it themselves, right? And I think that that's important to have. When you have mentors who are mentoring you, hey, AJ, you need to get to practice a little earlier. Hey, AJ, you need to stay a little later. And your coach isn't doing that. That's kind of hypocritical, right? So the coaches here, none of them are like that. And that's one of the biggest factors that decided me coming here, in the culture, the camaraderie, like I said in my past interviews, this is the first program where all the guys here I trust. I know that they look out for me, they care about me, and I care about them. And I've been around some other programs that there was some jealousy, and the coaches really didn't get rid of it. And the coaches here, as I've said before, they don't sacrifice talent for integrity. Everybody here has integrity. There's nobody in our entire community, in the wrestling community, that steals, does other things. You hear crazy stuff about Penn State, other programs. This program, it has a basis of discipline. And Coach Manning, as the leader, really does a good job making sure we're on the straight and narrow. It's a really important quote is, broad is the way that leads to destruction. Straight and narrow is the gate that leads to success and salvation. And I think that guys like Brock Hardy, to live that life, and we try to make sure that in every aspect of our life, right? Myself especially, I always try to watch film. I always try to live that life of discipline, and it shows.
Okay. You guys are good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Work.